Your Highness, Your Excellencies, Professor Mohammed Yunus, alumni from VA Harvard and other business schools, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 4th edition of Crossroads. A lot has happened in last year, as we know. Since the last Crossroads event, oil prices have gone down by 30%. 1 million young people have come on the market, job market, just in the GCC, and 30 million people have come to the job market in the Middle East and the subcontinent.
Today is about stories. The wonderful story of Mohammed Yunus going out there and saving millions of lives. Stories about Dubai as a nation and how it transformed.
This area has been a crossroad for 5,000 years. It's been 5,000 years of excitement with ups and downs, uninterrupted, and you can go as far as you want in history.
Or this region, for centuries, the success was when we had openness. When you have openness and tolerance, and if we did just one thing, female empowerment.
We all grow up in an environment that has man-made challenges placed upon us, things that we can't do, things that we are not supposed to do, and probably when we get down to the bottom of it, we get convinced that there is no reason why, it's just that somebody has told us it can't be done.
If we don't think how we are going to change our economic reality, both in a regional context and on a global context, and we will lose the race to capture those consumers that live in our backyards. I run a business that focused on this. I run a business that saw this opportunity, and we kind of decided that this was the only market and opportunity we wanted to play in. And so we started understanding the reality of what this marketplace meant. We developed something called the Scooter Index. And why we developed the Scooter Index is because better than GDP, it gives us a definitional understanding of how economies are moving.
You have indeed assembled at a global crossroads, and we who live and work here are delighted to welcome you, visitors from abroad, to Dubai and to the United Arab Emirates. The UAE is in its 45th year of welcoming people from all over the world. We have about 200 nationalities here, to our emerging nations.
I did not have the international experience in the business that we were planning to do. So there was a perception also before I left the country, which is very important. The imagination was most of the Arabs will have about half a dozen oil wells.
The issues have been raised in many different ways, but the way I respond to it overall, in a way, I don't blame ourselves for the work that we do. I blame the thinking which led us to do the things we do. So I go back to the way all the structures, the concepts, and the way we are encouraged, we are inspired to devote ourselves in doing things, believing in what they said is the right thing to do. So what was said as the right thing to do, that's where the wrong things are. So that's how, and not that I was kind of trying to be a theoretician about it. I just accidentally got into those issues. And I created my responses to it without trying to create any wave anywhere. You know, first one, as you are familiar with, the lending money to poor people. Thank you very much.
We believe that it will be very difficult to match the progress and success that DMCC has brought to the table. We are still moving fast. We're still registering on average around 150 companies a month. We're looking to grow that as we move on.
And this is definitely a declining Western century relative to its own power. If you go back to 100 years ago, there were less than 100 countries on the planet. There's 186.
My parents, my sister and I were refugees during the genocide in Rwanda. We started again back in Uganda, and at that time, when I was trading in IT parts, Dubai was the perfect hub to actually come and buy parts from. China at the time in 1996 was still focused on very large volumes, and therefore Dubai became that, that ground where you could actually pick up smaller quantities.
My role is to bridge old and new. So whether it's countries, I was in Myanmar 4 years ago, opening up Myanmar to the West, opening up Myanmar, specifically certain sectors. Now I'm working very closely in Iran.
This panel will look very closely at what the leaders of the 21st century look like. Young people will be essential, so will women as well, in driving our future.
For me to share with you some of my experience regarding youth and also regarding the role in the developments of our region.
What's your views when it comes to enabling both the young people and women to become more active in our future?
See, not too long ago, we could have had exactly the same discussion on women and the youth, and we would have talked about how it is our right to be involved in the workforce, how it would be fair, how it's a matter of equality. And I still think we should have this discussion, but more and more people, and many of the leaders also here in the room, when I hear you speak, have realized that this is not only a matter of equality, it's the most simple business imperative. Your teams will simply perform better.
So they really recruit the best value for money. What that does do, and from my perspective, is that it drops a lot of ageism issues, gender issues. So if I'm looking for the best engineer, regardless if they're 20 or 40, regardless if they're a man or a woman, regardless if they're where their nationality is from, I just want the best engineer because I'm cash-strapped.
You may allow me to define STEM. I'm sure most audience know that it's an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. But what is that one word that brings all these subjects together? What is the unifying theme behind them? It's really logic.
Why innovate? If you didn't innovate, you died. When I grew up, the people who, put a man on the moon, those were the rock stars. If you look between the US and the UK, that's all, just the US and the UK, we estimated you could feed more than 1 billion people with the food we throw away because we grew it in the wrong place, we couldn't transport it, we made a bad economic bet as to what would sell.
And put the jackets on. And when you bounce, all the energy comes back, and then you do that. Get your shoulders, and then you do it around your brain, because the brain starts working. And then you do the keep going. 1 minute.
You're dangerous. Wow, look at that.
I guess in my mind, disruption is looking at two things. One is changing every day, changing the norm, and looking how to improve that, in which intelligence will become a commodity. So in the next 20 years, you won't need to remember your times tables. You won't need to remember languages. You will be able to access that from the cloud in a microsecond. The thing that makes us particularly human, there's three key areas. One is imagination, the second is collaboration, and the third is exploration.
Leading from the emerging present. And it's the idea that you never can actually predict the future, but you can see the signals of change in the present around you. There are going to be a lot less jobs in the future. A lot less jobs. You look at the historical evidence in the last 15, 20 years, they call it jobless growth. That's because technology enables increasing productivity without the need for a new job. So what does it mean to be a human being, a valued member of society in a jobless future? That's a fundamental rethinking of our economic and social contract.
Jambu is from Uber. I've always found it very fascinating as a company. You don't do anything, right? You just you don't do anything, you don't own anything, you just have a $60 billion valuation doing zip. Can you just tell us the secret of that, please? Because we'd like to replicate it.
It's a lot of professional agitators. No, listen, I think it's a paradigm, right? And I think the idea of the paradigm is about efficiency. And historically, capital investment has been incredibly inefficient. And in any business in the world, I think you've got to ask the question, what are the pieces of that where ownership is actually detrimental and ownership can actually be shifted to individuals in a way that empowers them? The other piece that I think is super critical, and we've learned this, is access to the marketplace is incredibly equal.
Yeah.
Right? You can start a business and an app in the Philippines and your biggest customers can be in Sweden. And that does not matter at all. comes down to a very, very simple question, which is how prepared are you to disrupt yourself?
But at this point, almost everything we throw out there is open. You want to go play with Watson? Fine. You get on Bluemix, you get an idea, and you go play with it, just like that. And that's a key element to the success in this era.
Can we do some live coaching here? And you have 4 of the world's greatest coaches sitting here.
If you have to drag yourself out of bed in the morning to go do your job, change it. Just do something different. I mean, you will never, ever reinvent yourself if that's the mode of operation. Good luck to you.
Don't think about what somebody else will do. Think about instituting change yourself, and start thinking about doing it today.
I think it's, I think it's identify your largest threat, what you think the largest threat to your business is, and then ask yourself, why not do that yourself?
So I wish you all the best. Come back next year. Thank you to this wonderful, wonderful team, and over to our president. Idea.